Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pro Soccer Talk as we look back at week 2 of the Premier League season and look ahead to week 3. I'm Joe Prince-Wright, the lead writer and editor at NBC Sports' Pro Soccer Talk. Delighted, as always, to say I'm joined by Nick Mendola and Andy Edwards, two wonderful writers over at Pro Soccer Talk with me. Lads, I know this was a crazy weekend in the Premier League. 44 goals across 10 games. That's a record in a Premier League weekend. So, Nick, did you have a good weekend? Did you enjoy that goal fest we just had across England?
I did. I thought it was great. Everything about it really ticked a lot of the boxes for me. It felt like one of the first full proper weekends we had in a while, not just because of the Premier League, because you had all these little Americans abroad things jumping off with Gio Reyna and Josh Sargent and Tyler Adams overseas, and of course Weston McKennie. So the Premier League is always the main feast for me. And so that delivered on every level, but all the Thanksgiving like side dishes were there too. So I loved this weekend all the way top to bottom. Really great.
Well, I'm hungry already, mate. Speaking about ready for that turkey. Andy, what about you? That must have been pretty enjoyable for you this weekend watching that.
It was always going to be like this without a proper preseason, right? It's always going to be the defense and the possession and stuff that comes along a little bit slower. You've got world-class talent in the attacking areas for almost all these teams in the Premier League. You're going to get goals, especially if everything else is not razor sharp, as it's not quite clearly at this point of the season. We even saw it in week 1 with Liverpool and the way that they had to beat Leeds United. So I think probably the first month maybe or so until teams just kind of get settled in just a little bit and work together every single day and just get the routine back until it feels like, I guess, a regular season, because this is a very different season. We talked about it last week, and I think we're seeing the effects of it already.
Absolutely. It's been a lot of fun, though, hasn't it? As we said, lots of goals, lots of action, lots of star players stepping up already. Very unpredictable, as the Premier League always seems to be. But what's predictable is that we grabbed a beer here, so we have a transatlantic beer from here in England. Nick is in Buffalo, New York, and then Andy is in Kansas City. And we've got the what you got there, Andy? Bit of whiskey in that coffee there.
A little Irish coffee, yeah, of course.
Very nice, very nice. It helps it go a bit smoother. And let's get into our first segment of the day. Breaking news, sort of transfer situation. Something we expected, lads. Edouard Mendy joined Chelsea. New goalkeeper coming in from Rennes. Senegalese international. With Kepa Arrizabalaga performances in recent days, weeks, and months, this is something we expected. Lampard said he's going to come in to compete with Kepa for the number 1 spot, but I think we all know that's not really the case. Kepa's made so many errors. Pretty much every shot that's coming in from outside the box has been going in. Had that awful error against Liverpool last time out to let in Mane for the second. Andy, what do you think about this move first and foremost? Do you think this is heading in the right direction for Chelsea?
They had to do something. They couldn't continue on just in the way that they've been for the last season and a half. I think they've got enough evidence that Kepa, whether he can be that guy or not, there's clearly something mentally going on with him right now, I think, and he's pressing a little bit, just trying to do a little bit too much with every touch of the ball, with every save that he's asked to make, and he's clearly inside of his own head. And I think the biggest comparison that I've seen from anyone is kind of David De Gea from when he first came over to Manchester United from Atletico Madrid. He was, he struggled bad for a couple seasons, but it was all things that you can kind of teach. It was dealing with crosses in the box and balls up high and kind of the physicality of the Premier League he wasn't used to. And so he grew into that physically and mentally. With Kepa, it's just kind of mistake after mistake after mistake. And I don't know that you can kind of teach or coach that out other than just giving him kind of the confidence, and certainly, replacing him and benching him is not probably going to do that. So I would imagine by the time Mendy gets settled in, we've probably seen just about the last of Kepa at Chelsea. And that doesn't mean he can't go on and be successful elsewhere, but I would imagine that he's probably not going to start many more games for Chelsea.
Nick, he's never seemed comfortable, has he, Kepa at Chelsea, or just in the Premier League in general?
Maybe there were some moments, maybe at the start, the fallout with Sarri in the cup was, hilarious, right? In retrospect, hilarious, but maybe a harbinger of things to come. And I just think as their defense, as we kind of look at who they have there and who they have had there, I wonder how all he had to do for 2 weeks was be okay. Right? That's all he had to do. If he was okay against Liverpool, Lampard said after the game, it was a little unrealistic, but he could have been 1-1 if we make the penalty and Kepa doesn't give the ball away. And that's, again, it doesn't really tell you about the game, but it's not entirely wrong. So I am a little bit surprised maybe we didn't see Caballero. I know he's 38 years old, but, Lampard's trusted him before. So it's time. I do worry a little bit about Lampard's approach. Obviously, he thinks Rudiger is surplus requirements. I know Azpilicueta had an injury earlier this year, but 5 minutes over 2 games when he's one of your steadiest guys and your captain for a long time. I don't know, a little weird for me. I still have some questions about Lampard and his just super excitement about young players.
And do you think Chelsea is strong enough at the back, Nick? Because we talk about them as title contenders, potentially the team closest to Liverpool and Man City. Thiago Silva's coming on a free transfer. Obviously, Ben Chilwell's a massive upgrade on Marcus Alonso at left back. Do you think they have enough now defensively with Mendy coming in to kind of be the best of the rest, if you like, in the Premier League?
I do, but with a major hedge, and that's that you have right now at least N'Golo Kante, and Kovacic has been incredible. I've loved watching him play. It's one of those things where you look at him and be like, what didn't you see, Madrid? Like, what wasn't there for you? Because he's really matured into incredible. And Lampard probably deserves a lot of credit for that. Midfield maestro himself.
I think they've got a lot of second center backs there along that back line, but they don't have the commanding leader, right? They don't have the Van Dijk. They don't have the Toby Alderweireld at his very best, obviously not there anymore, but just that player that completely organizes and takes charge of the defense. They need someone to take charge and be in control of what they're doing defensively. It's everybody kind of looking side to side. You got this, and nobody really wants to step up and make the play. They're all scared to make a mistake, to be the one that costs the team. It's just that there's so many kind of indecisive moments back there along the back line. They just need that one person that comes in and goes, I got this. It's good. We're good.
Yeah, there's a lot of players that seem to be on this very similar level. Zuma, Rudiger, Christensen, they're, like you said, all looking to one another. No one has really elevated himself from that pack of centre-backs. And Tomori, I thought, did really well when he came in against Liverpool, but all of a sudden he hasn't played a lot very recently. For the last few months, he's been kind of the odd man out there. So interesting to see what Thiago Silva does when he comes in and when he's up to speed. But for Chelsea, my big thing is how much difference will a goalkeeper make to the way that they're asked to play? Because Lampard is an attacking coach. He loves to get players forward. He likes his full-backs to become wing-backs. And like you said, Nick, Kante is kind of that safety net, right? If everyone bombs forward, then at least he's there plugging the gaps. But I still think that Chelsea will get overloaded in a lot of situations. And even if you're the best goalkeeper in the world, if you're having to face 5 or 6 shots from inside your own box a game, you're going to concede a couple of goals. So really interesting to see how Chelsea get on. And then, of course, they're at West Brom this weekend, 12:30 Eastern, the big game of the week on the big NBC channel. So it'll be interesting to see how those younger players up front gel with Werner and Havertz. But at the back, like we said, is the most interesting thing for Chelsea right now. So breaking news in the Premier League, to wrap it up, is Edouard Mendy has joined Chelsea from Rennes. He played really well, the Senegalese international for Rennes, got into the Champions League, but now he's moving to the Premier League. And it'll be really interesting to see how he does, because I think most of us think he couldn't possibly get any worse than Kepa has in goal for Chelsea over the last few seasons. Not harsh on Kepa, it's just the facts. Like Frank Lampard said, that's football. We've all seen it. We've all seen the mistakes, and they need to take him out of the firing line now and give Mendy a chance. Okay, next we're going to talk about 3 things we learned. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk. We have 3 things we learned on each Premier League game. Nick, Andy, and I give our expert analysis on every single game of the season. And I'm going to start with you, Nick. What did you learn from week 2 in the Premier League, and heading into week 3? What kind of impact do you think that will have, the lesson you've learned?
Yeah, so granted, remember that Man City won, but the 2 Manchester sides and how they reacted to being rusty, to having leg problems, everything that you expected from them extra week. I just have so many questions about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Just so many questions. You saw Pep Guardiola after the win over Wolves talk about, hey, this is kind of what I expected. We needed the young legs like Phil Foden to carry us. And, thank goodness we have Kevin De Bruyne, but that was a tough game and we got through it. But he was very brief and almost like too crusty about it. Whereas Solskjaer was almost like, well, let me make it was almost an energy of excuses, if that makes sense. Both best players for both of those teams were KDB and Bruno Fernandes. And for whatever reason, Fernandes had 5 key passes. Like, his heat map was a lava lamp against Palace. But Rashford was awful. Martial was awful. And they both went 90 minutes. So I don't know. Maybe it's just that they were dreadful and they're two very good players. But for me, the difference between the two teams is City has a system to lean on. And I'm not sure Solskjaer has a system. And I don't know. He's had his moments where I've had to bite my tongue. I just don't believe in him. And I'd be interested to see what Donny van de Beek says, because he's had Erik ten Hag for a few years. And I imagine there's a bit of a difference there.
Yeah, I know we all love some nostalgia, and that's the main reason Solskjaer was hired in the first place, to get Man United out of a hole on a caretaker basis. But they did so well, they kept him on. But I read somewhere here in England during the week that realistically, if you look at it, if he was a free agent as a manager and all 20 Premier League clubs, how many of the 20 Premier League clubs would hire him to be their manager? Apart from
how many
Man
would
United,
interview him?
Yeah, I don't think he even gets an interview for the majority of that. And he's only at Manchester United because of what he did in the past. Granted, let's not forget, he did the job that he was asked to do in his first full season, got him into the top 4. A lot to be said about that. But, it's interesting to see the reaction from Man United fans already. I mean, Jadon Sancho isn't going to solve their problems as much as they want Ed Woodward to go out there and sign endless checks. He's not going to be running back, and he's not going to be defending and stopping these chances. And I think what we saw at the weekend, right, is for United at least, they need an upgrade on Lindelof. They need an upgrade on Luke Shaw. So Tellez could be coming in. Been linked, obviously, with Koulibaly and other centre-backs. But they need help, Man United. I'm with you, Nick. I think Man City just got the job done. Looks rusty, but they're still coming off that hangover of the Champions League and failure there. That's all it was. Let's not get not beat about in the bush there. They should have won the Champions League, or at least been in the final this summer. So for Man United, I'd be more worried about that. Yeah, Andy, your thoughts on that, and then let us know what you learned this weekend.
Well, it was always a weird hire, right? And the nostalgia you mentioned there, and the fact that he had done so well taking over interim, it makes me think back, and with a tie-in to Tottenham here, had they not kept him as the permanent manager and had gone for Pochettino then, rather than Pochettino sticking around for another few months and then being fired by Spurs, how differently could things look for both of those clubs? You've got a kind of a builder of projects in Pochettino who could have United and the resources and the finance that have been backed and everything there. That could have been very successful. Spurs could have moved on and kind of changed up the team as they needed to do at that time, but neglected to do for an extra year. So it just, the dominoes that could have fallen had it not been Solskjaer going there would have been very interesting. But anyway, the thing that I think that I think we probably knew it already, but it was reinforced over the weekend, was I think we are due another very, very good title race in the way that we had one 2 years ago. Probably the same two participants, probably Liverpool, probably Man City, maybe Man City and Liverpool. Who knows how it's going to finish? But Liverpool bounced back from looking a little bit ropey in the opening weekend against Leeds, and they had an air about them of, okay, we know we've got to be better. We can be better. We are better. And they just kind of seem to flip that switch immediately going against Chelsea this weekend. And I know that the red card played a big part in it and everything. But I look at Sadio Mane, the form that he is in to start this season, the three that they've got up top, they can lean on any one of those guys for an individual game or for a month at a time. How many clubs have one player like that? They've got three of them up top. And so they can rely on that. And I like what Nick said there about Guardiola talking after the game on Monday. He was more frustrated than making excuses. That's kind of the difference in the job security between those two managers if you compare the Manchester clubs. But he knows what his objective is, and I don't think Solskjaer does. I think he's just trying to do everything he can to tread water and stay in the job and not get fired. And so I expect City, whether it's just by the beautiful football that we've seen from them over the years, or Guardiola kind of demanding and willing them to get there, I think they're going to be right there in the title race this year. It could be a point or two between them, as it was a couple of years ago. And I'm really excited to see it. It's great to have kind of the same, not only the same clubs, but the same teams kept together over a period of time, and they can begin to build a natural on-field rivalry. Maybe not the local derby or anything, but just so many big games between those teams with those same players going up against each other. That's where it really starts.
Exactly. So when it's talked about now, it's talked about that big event in terms of, Arsenal, Man United with Fergie and Wenger in the past, and obviously Chelsea and Liverpool with Benitez and Mourinho going head to head. So I think we're getting to that territory now. These two teams, they really do add the spice on the pitch, and it's a great occasion. for Liverpool City go head-to-head. They're going to go head-to-head for the title of the season. So in terms of what I learned quickly from the past 7 days is that Harry Kane is a superb creator. We all talk about the goals that he scores, but some of those passes to Heung-min Son, 4 assists down at Southampton in that 5-2 win for Tottenham. 4 were brilliant. I think on one of them, he said afterwards in the post-game interview, he didn't even look. He just hit it in the area where he knew Son would be. And that, to me, we kind of forget when Spurs were playing at Wembley, their last season at White Hart Lane, Kane would drop deep a lot on the left flank, would cut inside, find those balls in behind to Son or Dele Alli or Eriksen pushing on. And I think that he's underrated, that part of his game. If Harry Kane could possibly be underrated, then his team play and his ability to sort of drop in, that gives me hope if I'm Tottenham that Gareth Bale can come in and maybe play as that central player. They've given him the number 9 shirt. He can maybe play as that central forward. And Harry Kane is more mobile than Bale right now. So why not feed him the chances and get him behind and link up? And that movement of those 3, Nick, you touched on it last week, Son, Kane and Bale, that's pretty incredible. So let's see if Bale gets up to speed. Mourinho said that his desire to play for Spurs and motivation level should see him come back a bit quicker. So anybody got some motivation cream they want to rub on his knee and see how he gets on? But it'll be really interesting to see. I know, you can't. Mourinho is just box office in every sense of the word. So, yeah, we learned a lot this week, and there's a lot of goals. As I said, record goal scoring week in the Premier League. A lot of lessons early in the season, I feel, and it's going to be really interesting to see how teams kick on now from these opening weeks of the season. So now we're going to move on to player power rankings, my favourite segment, because it is the segment where I get to put my neck on the line. And most people watching this will have a lot of different ideas to me in the comments. So I'm going to list my top 5 to 1. And Andy and Nick, I want you to add anybody else. But I just want to say off the bat here, there are a lot of honourable mentions this week because there were so many players that deserve to be in this top 5. So number 5, I'm going to have Heung-min Son from Tottenham, which probably raises a few eyebrows. He scored 4 goals, obviously clinical. And I just haven't seen, it was weird, right? It was like watching a replay over and over again. There was very similar, the goals, but he just feasted on that Southampton defensive line being so high. And it was like watching Son 2 seasons ago, probably. Really is back to his best. And maybe that's a bit harsh because throughout all the changes at Tottenham, he's been the one constant that you can really rely on. So yeah, Son for me is at number 5 this week. Number 4, I'm going for another Spurs player, Harry Kane, 4 assists. A new entry into our rankings and the power rankings this week. And that role as creator, I just think that was sensational. Mourinho again came up and said that Kane should have been the man of the match instead of Son because the way he really carried Spurs through that second half. Let's not forget, they were 1-0 down to Southampton. They were struggling a little bit. They were letting in Southampton create a lot of chances, and Kane just kind of took that game by the scruff of the neck. He got his goal as well, but those 4 assists to me showed he's got that extra dimension to his game back. And alongside Son and Bale, he can really wreak havoc this season. So number 3, Kevin De Bruyne. Scored a penalty kick. It was at the heart of Man City's win against Wolves. Hungrier than ever for me. And De Bruyne was probably the most disappointed Man City player when they lost to Lyon in the Champions League. I really feel like for him, time is running out a little bit in comparison to Raheem Sterling, Phil Foden, Laporte, Edison. They still feel probably like they've got another 8-9 years of Man City being, at the top of the game if they're still there. But De Bruyne now, not getting any younger, but he is just maturing like a fine French wine, the Belgian playmaker. And I love everything about his display against Wolves. I really did. Even to set up the chance and win the tackle in stoppage time for Gabriel Jesus to score. It shows that he is an absolute machine. And we talk about his wonderful passing, creativity, but his hunger, for me, is right up there with the very best in the world. Talking about the very best in the world, number 2, James Rodriguez scored his first Everton goal, lovely goal. And that wonderful ball to Digne on the left for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to score. I just think he made the entire Everton offense click against West Brom. He did it against Tottenham as well. And it's a rare player, right, when you get him on the ball and everyone around him seems to be better. That's what I love about him. Always seems like he has so much time as well, which again is a great sign of a good player. How many times do you hear that? He always knows where 2, 3, 4 options are. And Ancelotti gave him that big bear hug when he came off. And I think as long as James stays fit, Everton fans everywhere are dreaming of, a top 6, 7 finish. And as long as they stay solid at the back and Pickford has a good season, then I think they'll be okay. So my top player in the power rankings this week is Sadio Mane at Liverpool. 2 goals, desire to score that second one, wonderful header for the first, never ever gives up. If there was ever a Jurgen Klopp player that epitomised this style, it's Sadio Mane. And I think, lads, he's underrated. I really do. In terms of Salah and Firmino get a lot of the plaudits. But for me, Mane, I saw a stat that said he's now scored more goals than Fernando Torres for Liverpool and did it in a lot fewer games as well. And to think of the legendary status that Torres had and the teams that he was playing for then at Liverpool had Gerrard and Xabi Alonso feeding him chances game after game. So Mane, for me, consistently one of the best players. I voted for him in my Football Writers Player of the Year award last year. And I think he's going to be right up there with the best players in the Premier League this season. So quickly to run through my honourable mentions: Fabinho at Liverpool, Patrick Bamford, Tariq Lamptey, Wilfred Zaha, and Calvert-Lewin scoring a hat-trick. I've run through a lot there, lads. Any holes in that? Anything you want to agree with, disagree with? Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, no holes, but 2 guys I want to highlight because I think they deserve a mention. Richarlison is a special player. And last year that he was asked to do so much on his own, and the midfield's helping him. Calvert-Lewin is helping him. And I believe I read somewhere he is second to Traore in successful dribbles this year, 13. Also saw that he's got 7 tackles. So he's playing with an edge and attitude. Remember, Ancelotti said last year he thinks he can be a 30-goal player in all competitions. So him. And then I haven't given this guy enough credit, maybe because he's a lone player last year as well, but Dani Ceballos was phenomenal. And he unlocked West Ham for that eventual goal, had over 120 touches or something like that. I just thought he was absolutely wonderful in that game.
Yeah, he's good. Andy, anything to add?
Tough week to score a hat trick and not even make it into the top 5 for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I understand why, because you've got a couple of weeks of body of work for Sadio Mane and James Rodriguez, and then you've got Kane and Son coming in and doing what they did this week. And so I get it. Very, very tough, poor weekend to choose to grab a hat trick for Dominic Calvert-Lewin there. But I would also like to say, while some people may have forgotten that is what Harry Kane does when he is at his best, is drop in and create chances, I have not forgotten. It is the injuries that have robbed him the last couple of years of the ability to do that. He's essentially been kind of rendered as a poacher, kind of just in the box. Somebody just get on the end of chances, crosses in there, and that's all he's been able to do physically because of the injury. And I actually think that having 3 or 4 forced months off during this year due to the pandemic allowed him to finally reach full health and fitness in a way that he's not been able to do. He's been rushed back from injury too many times. And so I would not be surprised at all if we see next week Harry Kane at 2 or 3, maybe a couple of weeks after that they can cool off a little bit, maybe Harry Kane at 1. This looks like it's going to be a very good season from Harry Kane just because he looks like he is healthy and fit for the first time in it's been about 3 years, really, since he's been at his best.
All aboard the Tottenham bandwagon. Absolutely. Mourinho is leading the charge. And I have to say that, honestly, this was one of the toughest weeks to ever do the power rankings. Top 5, there could have been 25, 30 players that really deserve to be up there in terms of the individual performances. Again, a lot of bad defending out there, but the attacking players, they certainly made the most of that in that record-breaking weekend across the Premier League. So let's look ahead now to the top 3 match weeks of week 3 in the Premier League season. Of course, you can watch all the Premier League games live in the USA on NBCSN, on main NBC, on Peacock TV. All those details are up on ProSoccerTalk at NBCSports.com with the full schedule, stream links, previews, team news. The 3 lads you can see here, we'll have you covered ahead of this weekend. First game I'm going to focus on, gents, is Liverpool against Arsenal. Big battle for me is Aubameyang against Virgil van Dijk. And of course in midfield, Thiago Alcantara, does he start? Very interesting. I spoke to Jurgen Klopp after that win at Chelsea. I asked him about Thiago and said, is this the exact reason why you brought him in, for teams sitting back, defending deep? And he said, yeah, it is. It's one of the reasons. He's a great player, but he will help us unlock these teams that sit back and defend. And I feel like Arsenal kind of do that under Arteta, right? They draw teams back. They play it around at the back, and then they try and hit teams quick on the counter. So mouth-watering game here. Andy, Aubameyang against Van Dijk. Who do you think wins that individual battle there? That's a proper heavyweight battle, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they can both, they can both win it, right? You can have a 15-minute period where Van Dijk just has Aubameyang just in his back pocket. But all Aubameyang needs a player of that quality, just a moment. And then it completely turns the game on its head. So, Van Dijk can handle any center forward in the world. I don't think that's an issue for him. But Aubameyang will have a couple of chances that most forwards wouldn't get. And it's just kind of about what Van Dijk can do in that moment right there. And going back to Thiago there really quickly, not only is he going to help to unlock defenses that sit in deeper, but he's going to, I think, help them defend through just being able to keep possession a little bit more, because how many times do they win the ball and it's immediately, we've got to get upfield as quick as we can. We've got to create a chance from this. Just the ability to keep the ball, take an extra half second on it, and just see what's developing around the field. Nobody's got better vision than him. Nobody will make a better decision than him. So I just think from a control perspective, I guess, he might just give them a little bit of pause to their game, which, they can certainly use at points. They can be their own worst enemy and get themselves into trouble. So I just think, every single facet of that signing is absolutely perfect and is going to bring so much to this team. And by the way, he's got 45 minutes in now. He's nowhere near settled and being up to speed with his new team.
And Nick, midfield, is this the key area here? I mean, I know you love Danny Ceballos. Granit Xhaka's done really well alongside him, but is this really the key area, the key battle in this game against Liverpool with Arsenal?
Yes, in the sense that I need them both to be available for Gabriel. It's his biggest test yet in leading Arsenal. Through the first 2 weeks, he's passing over 90%. He's known for that. But the one knock on him as a young player was he was prone to the big mistake. And that pressing from Liverpool, that they're going to be pushing him. They're going to be showing him, well, listen, I know you've faced West Ham and I know you've faced Fulham, but this is Bobby Firmino. This is Sadio Mane. This is going to be something special. And do we see Diogo Jota? Do we see him in a real interesting, make it hard way here?
Yeah, in terms of, Nick, for you, Arsenal, what's their ceiling? Are we starting to change our sort of pre-season predictions about them, given the first few weeks of the season? Because I love the grit that they show under Arteta, whether it be FA Cup final, Community Shield, the first couple of weeks of the season. They've taken that next step, right, already?
I want this game in a big way. We didn't, also because we didn't get, Chelsea and Liverpool didn't get to deliver for us largely on account of the red card. And honestly, in the first half, even Timo Werner was one or two touches away from scoring 2 goals, just a little sloppy on that one breakaway down the left side. So I want to see a game. I want to see Liverpool tested because they're the champions. But again, we saw what happened against good teams after they clinched their title. So I want to be entertained. I want 90 minutes here. That's what I want.
Entertain Nick Mendola, please. Sadio Mane, Salah, Bobby Firmino. Just score goals galore. Carry on from last week. That's fine. I think this is going to be a really tight game. I think Liverpool's front three and then Thiago in midfield. And I just think they have a little bit too much for this Arsenal defence. There's still a few cracks there and still not totally sold on Leno. He's been pretty solid, but he's going to be asked to play. He's great, but he's going to be asked to play with the ball at his feet a lot. And I still don't know that's his biggest sort of asset. It's a great shot stopper. Every goalkeeper should be. I can already hear you saying it. But
Kepa.
I think they're going to put, wow, he might not be listening anymore. I think that under Arteta, they put an awful lot of pressure on their centre-backs and goalkeeper to try and, get teams to push high and then clip it over and start attacks. But Liverpool are used to doing that. They're used to pressing high and they won't let them out. So I think Liverpool make the most of that, and I think they're going to win. But Andy, anything to chime in on here?
Yeah, I'll just very quickly say we've seen Arsenal start seasons like this before against some of the lesser teams and look very impressive. But the second they come up against any one of the other top 6 sides, they're completely different. And I don't mean that, physically or tactically or anything. I think it's a mental thing. I think it has been for quite a long time with that club. And this will be maybe a first real opportunity with Arteta having a full season now in charge to see the mentality change that you talked about, Joe, kind of the grittiness that they seem to have right now. Against the lesser teams, we will see if they're able to maintain that and the confidence that comes along with that as well. When it is Firmino, it is Salah, it is Mane running at you and the midfield and the defense there for Liverpool. Liverpool. So at the risk of trying to take too much of a lesson from one game in the third week of the season, this is a really big one for Arsenal, I think, to just kind of prove themselves and put a marker down for the season, say, this is who we are. We're actually here this time. This is not a mirage as it's been in the past.
Well, Liverpool-Arsenal's coming up 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, September 28th. So let's see if they can put down that marker early in the season at Liverpool. Nick Mendola, Man City against Leicester City. Take it away, my friend. Preview-wise, what are you looking forward to in this one?
Yeah, I think it's a big question for Leicester, obviously. Man City looks like they're fine. They're asking a lot of Nathan Ake and Mendy on the left side, but Laporte may be back. Remember, that's the other thing about City to note from that win over Wolves, which was at Wolves and a quality opponent. No Laporte, Bernardo Silva, João Cancelo. I always say his name wrong. I apologize. And again, Ake playing his first game. I just think there's a lot of questions about their left side right now. And you saw Daniel Podence from Wolves was moved to the right side. That's where he got his mag on Kevin De Bruyne. They targeted, hey, let's see what you can do over there. But for Leicester, the questions remain against good teams. Last year, that amazing start, right? And the holidays came. It goes a couple days before Christmas. They lose 3-1 to Man City, and then they lose after Christmas 4-0 to Liverpool. And since then, these are their wins. These are all of Brendan Rodgers' Premier League wins. West Ham twice, Newcastle, Villa, Palace, Blades, West Brom, Burnley. And I just a lot of questions for him. I like Ndidi as a center back a little bit, but is that being too cute? I like that they sold Chilwell for so much and replaced him with arguably a better player. But big questions for Brendan Rodgers this year when they play good teams.
Absolutely. And Andy, focus on another big game coming up this weekend. Tottenham Hotspur against Newcastle United. What do you expect here? Mourinho's boys are going to surely roll Newcastle over, right? I mean, this is the Harry Kane and Son show from here on out.
Well, I think, first of all, it matters which Newcastle team shows up. The team from week 1, the team from week 2. You know, they beat West Ham pretty handily in week 1, 2-0 away from home as well. I think that's very important to remember. Now, obviously, the crowds and everything, but just, you know, anytime you go away. And then they did not show up for Brighton on the weekend, beaten 3-0 at home. And so it's been a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde start to the season for them. And I was very high on them after that first game. They seem to have kind of turned a corner, and they had this is a thing that I really look for in teams a lot, is how do they control games? Do they have control not only over themselves and the way that they're trying to play, but can they impose that on the game and play the game on their terms? And they did that against West Ham 100%. And then they had none of that against Brighton over the weekend. And so then the question coming off of that, going to the other side, is what does Jose Mourinho do with that? Because he is very notorious for, playing it safe, going a little bit too defensive. And I think that's the absolute wrong move against this Newcastle team right now. He needs to kind of embrace what they did against Southampton over the weekend, the 5 goals that they scored. They had the ball in the back of the net 7 times, by the way, Joe. I don't know if you remember that. It was 2 more times taken away. But Southampton were hard done by in that game. They were better than 5-2. But is he going to make it a little, to borrow Nick's phrase, be a little too cute with the way that he tries to set the team up, be too defensively solid, and kind of limit what they can do going forward? Because this Newcastle team can be had if you put the numbers forward. So it's just don't mess it up, Mourinho. That's all you have to do in this game, is go out there, take what Newcastle will give you. They will give you plenty, and you can have 3 points.
So let's see if Tottenham and Mourinho are going to park the bus, or if Steve Bruce is going to get a Brucey bonus for Newcastle. That's an interesting game. So the rest of the Premier League schedule, stream links, team news preview, everything you need is up at ProSoccerTalk at NBCSports.com. Looking forward to another really good week 3. I don't know if it'll beat the goals record from week 2, but early in the season we've seen a lot of madness. So who knows? It's certainly going to be one to watch. So all that's left for us to say is thanks for joining us for Pro Soccer Talk again. From myself, Joe Prince-Wright here in England, from Nick Mendola in Buffalo, New York, and from Andy Edwards in Kansas City. Thank you. We look forward to joining you very soon. Have a beer, enjoy the games, and enjoy the Premier League. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
All right, I think we're good.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe. Make sure you subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and always join us every weekend at 7 a.m. on NBCSN for Premier League mornings. Plus, make sure you subscribe to Peacock Premium as well, where you can watch exclusively live 175 games and same-day on-demand replays of all 380 Premier League matches as well.